G'day, all the way from Australia, Matt Degruchy here. Firstly, I'd love to say a huge thank you to Bold Blind Beauty for having me on as part of October's Man in Motion series. I'm super stoked to share my experiences of blindness and adversity, but mostly triumph and empowerment. I begin my story probably when I was about 9 years old. Life was essentially perfect. No dream was too big to achieve. Everything was more about saying yes, less about saying no. It was my parents that first noticed something was slightly different. Were they seeing something that no one else was seeing? They were told multiple times by teachers, "You're an overprotective parent. There's nothing wrong here." They decided to persevere. I was taken to see optometrist after optometrist, appointment after another, misdiagnosis after misdiagnosis, and nothing ever worked. I was given bifocal glasses, coloured overlay sheets, you name it, I had it. I was even in an optometrist's office one day, and the ophthalmologist was just so frustrated with me that he turned, he looked at my mother, and he said, "If your son can't read this, he must be a retard." I was 9. This guy was a professional. How was I to think? Eventually in 2006, I was diagnosed with Stargardt's macular dystrophy, Stargardt's disease. There is no treatment. This disease is incurable. You will never drive a car. You may never see your future children's faces. You will forever be missing pieces of that puzzle. The people around me at the time were describing my future as looking rather bleak. In most cases, the likelihood is that I will lose all but 2% of my vision. My sight currently sits at between 4 and 5%, depending on whether I am having a good or bad eye day. My central vision is non-existent, meaning that I only see through my peripheral, and not very well. A bright coloured blur, a messy Picasso masterpiece, is more what it's like for me to describe it than opposed to the stereotype that we who are blind see only black. I've spent probably the last 5 to 6 years trying to learn how to readapt and learn how to overcome these barriers that for so many of us shackle us down. They keep us grounded. I posted a video to the internet. It was for Foundation Fighting Blindness, the How I See It campaign. And it was liberating. I'd never talked about my blindness before. I'd never been open about my battles, my struggles, any of it. When I was young, I didn't see people like myself, or people with a disability, blind, visually impaired. I didn't see them in the TV, the magazines, the newspaper. I didn't see people like me being celebrated. The only thing that I saw as acceptable was perfection. And that really haunted me. Learning to come to terms with the fact that I was blind and visually impaired, I decided to start a clothing brand in 2018. MDV is aimed at raising awareness for the blind and visually impaired. The slogans like "What makes you visionary, views, recognize" are meant to represent not only people who are blind, visually impaired, but all disabilities and make everyone in between feel empowered. When I do my public talks or events or any form of engagement where I'm doing a presentation, I love to use these blindness simulation glasses. The first time I ever wore a pair of these was at a disability camp for the blind and visually impaired. I think the novelty at the time was that we could just take these on and off. Little did we know that life would be like this for us in the future. I remember playing basketball, doing home eco, cooking, all everyday society tasks. I usually pass these glasses along. Now, I must admit, these are not attractive. They are definitely not attractive. They're not Oakley's. This is kind of like a double whammy because I already have Stargardt's disease and then wearing these on top of it. The advice I would like to give to perhaps anyone out there that's younger that has a blindness story of their own or a visual impairment story of their own: don't suffer in silence. I know it can feel really isolating, especially in times like the last 18 months with the pandemic. But we have such a strong social media network, if you can get on social media, where you can share your story. You can also read other people's stories. The Help the Bold Blind Beauty, Foundation Fighting Blindness, Blind New World, all of those organizations can really open your mind and eyes to the world of the blindness and disability community. I struggled a lot. I suffered in silence a lot. I wasn't open and I didn't want to be known as the blind kid. That really scared me. But if I could go back in time, I would change that now. So if you're watching this, I want you to take some empowerment from this story. I want you to not be afraid to stand up and own your differences, because you deserve a fair go. You matter, you're important, and your story counts. What makes you visionary? Thank you.